Now let's turn to the FISA warrants and Carter Page. For the first time in the history of the 40-year-old secret court that was established by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, documents that supported a warrant were released this weekend. A Freedom of Information Act lawsuit disclosed the October 2016 application to wiretap Carter Page, a Trump campaign foreign policy advisor, along with several renewal applications after Donald Trump declassified their existence earlier this year. Among its 400 pages, many of which are redacted, the application states, quote, the FBI believes Page has been the subject of targeted recruitment by the Russian government, and identifies Page as a former foreign policy advisor to a candidate for president. It says, quote, the FBI believes the Russian government's efforts are being coordinated with Page and perhaps other individuals associated with that campaign. And it adds, the FBI believes that Page has been collaborating and conspiring with the Russian government. Page called the claims ridiculous and so misleading. The application used the Steele dossier's claim that Page spoke with senior Russian officials about lifting sanctions related to Russia's actions in Ukraine, though the unredacted portions show it used other materials as well. The application and its renewals show that all of the judges who signed off on the wiretapping were appointed by, wait for it, angry Republican presidents. Part of Donald Trump's 13 angry people in the investigation. 4 of those 13, you can actually put down as 4 Republican judges. Hey, Ben Wittes, there's so much to go to here, but first of all, just as a public service announcement to Morning Joe viewers, the 87 million people watching and listening on Armed Forces Radio across the world, I'm making that up. Tell us just how dramatic a change from precedent it was to have the FISA process made public, and the grave risks that go along with that. And then we'll ask you more about the Carter Page application.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think the answer to the question how unusual is that it's completely unprecedented. 20 plus years ago, when I was a very young reporter for a legal newspaper, I did what I think is the first sort of major story about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court in the mid-1990s. And at the time, the Justice Department made a decision to cooperate with the story, as did the court, by the way. And they all talked on the record, and we had a lot of conversations about FISA. The one thing I asked for that they said, no way, no how, you're never going to get, was the word processing template for a FISA application. That is, not only were they not willing to give a used application with everything redacted, they weren't even willing to let me see the mock-up that they write off of that shows the structure of it, which is, if you take all the material out, essentially what this is. In addition, this has the name of a target in it, and it has a lot of the material that they use to support the application. So it's completely unprecedented. It's a huge change, and it reflects the degree to which the president has, by talking about this process in a false fashion, forced the release of information, and the way Devin Nunes has, by talking about this information falsely, forced the department to contemplate the release of truthful information that can itself be very damaging.
Yeah, and Carol Lee, what did we find out from the documents that were released from the Justice Department?
Well, a number of things, including some of which you read, which is that there was a very clear directive. There was a very clear belief that Carter Page was conspiring with Russia in ways that were nefarious, and also that the renewals of this FISA warrant suggest, while that part is redacted and we don't know exactly what was learned, that led to those renewals of the FISA warrant. They show the number of pages that the application grew with each time. And so there was information that clearly they had learned in surveilling him that led to renewals. And so I think the main question coming out of when you look at what was released is what was that? And maybe we'll learn that in coming months, and maybe we won't. But there was very clearly, it kind of debunks what the president had said, that the Republican memo that was released that had exonerated him or showed that there was something that this was not done in a proper way. It certainly is another instance where that is debunked, and it shows that there was a real cause for this.
And Benjamin Wittes, obviously the president's tweet this weekend claiming that the documents exonerated him were ridiculous, not fact-based, to say the least. Talk about what your main takeaway was from the FISA documents released this weekend.
Well, I guess my main takeaway is that this is pretty much what I always imagined a FISA application would look like, which is to say, packed with information. It is not in support of a criminal conviction, right? So the fact that some of the information people may later raise questions about, they're only trying to establish probable cause for purposes of a warrant, a surveillance warrant, not prove the guy guilty of a crime to lock him up. But it's packed with information, some of which we can see, some of which is redacted, some of which involves highly sensitive intelligence sources, some of which are so sensitive that it's blacked out. And I think the most important point is that there were multiple renewals. Each renewal grows in the package grows, implying that they are getting new information along the way. And at no point does either the Justice Department hierarchy or the court say, hey, wait a minute, this material isn't good enough to support the surveillance that you're requesting. And so I think it's, it really does give the lie to both the president and the House Republicans' claims that there was something nefarious or inappropriate here.
Yeah, and John Heilemann, I wanted to follow up with you about the lies from Devin Nunes, yes. Paul Ryan, yes, the House Republicans. I remember when I first ran in 1994. Not only myself, but probably every other Republican across America was still attacking the Democratic Party because of their attacks on the intel community throughout the 1960s and 1970s. The Church Commission, you go down the line, we said the Democrats were insufficiently loyal to the intel communities, and it damaged their ability to go out across the world and do the important work they need to do to protect Americans. Well, I cannot believe that what the Republicans are doing now, what Paul Ryan has allowed to happen, what Devin Nunes, acting as a useful idiot for the Russian government, at the very least, what they did this last week, trying to defend the indefensible with Donald Trump actually adopting Soviet foreign policy that attempts to break up NATO instead of 50, 60 years of U.S. policy. I can't believe that doesn't stick to Republicans, not only in the midterms, but for the next 30 years.
Yeah, well, I think maybe the next 30 years is the more important thing than the midterms, and I don't know how it'll play out in the midterms, but I do want to pick up on that because what Ben Wittes said a second ago, look, we know the president is a liar. The president lies reflexively, pathologically on a daily basis. And maybe this thing I'm about to say is also not news, but nothing that has happened over the course of the last 18 months has more vividly demonstrated the extent to which the House Republicans on that Intel committee, and particularly Devin Nunes, are engaged in nothing other than a transparent effort to lie, prevaricate, throw up fog, throw up smoke in order to try to protect this president rather than doing their jobs. And this is an extraordinary thing, seeing all this documentation, but it really just makes clear, again, if it wasn't clear enough already, the extent to which Devin Nunes, who's the chairman of that committee, a committee that in the past has done great, important bipartisan work has become completely corrupted by whatever. You could spend all day speculating about what the source of that corruption is, but this shows the extent to which this guy who said he hadn't even read the documents he admitted at the time, and yet was willing to cast aspersions on the intel community, was willing to cast aspersions and basically stand up and say, well, Carter Page, I'm sure he's fine, and it's all about the Steele dossier. All of that obliterated by these documents. And I want to ask you, Michael Schmidt, how is it that, I mean, it really, one of the things that most baffles me is how at this point, in 18 months in, given the repeated depredations of Devin Nunes, Republicans on that committee, and Paul Ryan and supporting them, how is it that that committee is even a functional thing anymore? Or is it now just something that has no relevance whatsoever except in the political realm and has nothing to do with the oversight of the Intelligence Committee or anything that touches the Intelligence community?
Well, it really isn't, and they don't work together on anything, and they spend a lot of their time on cable television attacking each other. Right. It's pretty much, just a political thing. It's where the political fight about the Trump-Russia story goes on a daily basis, and I can't see any of that changing under the current circumstances. There had been some expectation after the election that there would be this bipartisan effort to get to the bottom of what happened. We see more of that on the Senate side, where the Senate Intelligence Committee is doing an investigation. Far less noise, far less fighting, some more hearings, a little bit more transparency, a little bit more idea that they are working together. At the same time, they have not completed their investigation. Mueller's investigation goes on. We do not have a 9/11 style commission that would produce some sort of large report for the public on this. So it allows different notions, conspiracy theories, false narratives to continue, especially out of that committee.
Yeah, Mike Barnicle, it seems to me, picking up on what John Heilman just said and Michael Schmidt, that where we are headed, if you are reading the tea leaves and believe that the Democrats are going to take over the House of Representatives, I think most people would suggest that they would, even historically. If you look at the numbers of seats that a sitting president loses, Democrats are going to most likely take over the House, and because of the map, Republicans probably will hold on to the Senate, could hold on to the Senate. What we're probably going to see next year, if the odds play out the way most people suspect they are, is you're going to see a bipartisan, bicameral investigation into Russia, led by Richard Burr, Republican from North Carolina on the Senate side, and a Democrat to be named later, possibly Adam Schiff, but a Democrat to be named later from the House of Representatives on the House side. And so you have one Republican who has been a straight shooter all along, a Democrat and from the House, and you spend the next year actually getting to the bottom of this in good faith and figuring out what happened, when it happened, what did the president know, and when did he know it?
Yeah, Joe, that's going to be a priority. I mean, everything we've spoken about here this morning in the first 20 minutes is of critical national importance. There's no doubt about it. The Iran tweet, Carter's Page, the FISA warrants. But right up there is the corruption of the process that has taken place in the House of Representatives over the past 18 months with Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker of the House, allowing and in some cases encouraging Devin Nunes to carry on a concerted and consistent effort to obstruct justice using a House committee.
And, Ben Wittes, we got to go to break, but it's more than just obstructing justice for Donald Trump. What Devin Nunes has done with the help of Paul Ryan through this FISA process has undermined our intelligence community, undermined intelligence gathering, and revealed not only to Russians, but to members of al-Qaeda, to members of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, to members of ISIS. A part of our intel process that we've hidden for 40 years.
Yeah, he's done a lot of things here. I mean, he has really shown that the United States intelligence community cannot protect sources from Congress. And that when Congress will out them and will force the intelligence community to out them. He has also really taken a sledgehammer to the intelligence oversight system, which was built in the wake of Watergate in order to prevent the intelligence community from running amok and abusing people's civil liberties. And, if you don't have a functioning congressional intelligence oversight system, then what actually prevents the intelligence community from behaving badly? And so it's really an attack not just on the effectiveness of the intelligence community, but also on the ability to monitor the intelligence community, which is, of course, precisely what he purports to be doing.
And Devin Nunes and his close friend Paul Ryan did this all in defense of the indefensible. I hope that works well for him moving forward. That's not really a story you want to tell your grandchildren.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.